Paradrama Tales.
I showed up for Christmas, but Mom said, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." Shocked, I left. And minutes later, my brother coldly admitted, "We couldn't let you in." How do you rebuild your life when your own family treats you like a stranger? Snowflakes drifted down in lazy spirals as I stood on the frosted doorstep, my breath curling in the icy air like ghostly ribbons. The twinkling Christmas lights on Mom's porch cast a warm glow through the falling snow, but their cheer felt miles away from the cold knot in my chest. I raised my hand to knock, knuckles tingling, and pressed my palm to the door's wood grain, feeling its chill seep through my gloves. Behind the glass, I could just make out the flicker of candlelight on a side table and the soft outline of my mother's figure, moving as though she were greeting a cherished guest. When I knocked again, louder this time, the door swung open smoothly, but not for me. Instead, I was met with a polite, unfamiliar smile and the words I'd never expected. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." Her voice was calm, practiced, the same tone you'd use when correcting a stranger who rang an error. Confusion washed over me, replaced instantly by a sharper sting. Rejection. I blinked, staring past her into a cozy room filled with laughter and the clink of glasses. My family's celebration in full swing, just on the other side of a barrier they'd built. Frozen in place, I whispered, "Mom, it's me." But she shook her head, her pale cheeks framed by the soft lamplight. "I'm sorry," she repeated, turning away as though relieved to be rid of the inconvenience. The door closed with a firm click, sealing me out of a world I'd thought was mine. That sound, soft, final, echoed in the empty night. I sank back onto the bottom step, snow gathering on my shoulders, my coat no longer enough to guard against the cold that wasn't just in the air. My breath quickened, and I realized I was shaking, not from temperature alone, but from the raw shock of having my own family erase me so casually. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a lifeline I hardly wanted. Adam's name appeared on the screen, and with trembling fingers I answered. He didn't hesitate. "Don't be upset," he began, his voice a mix of defensiveness and pity. "But you know we couldn't let you in." Every word felt like a brick laid across my heart, each syllable driving home the reality I'd refused to face. "We're sorry," he added, as if apology alone could build a bridge back to warmth and belonging. I wanted to scream that I'd kept them afloat for years, covered the mortgage, paid the utilities, bought Christmas gifts when budgets ran dry. But the words got tangled in my throat. Instead, I whispered, "Understood," and let the call drop into a chill silence. The world around me fell into uncanny stillness. The snow continued to drift, leaving lace-like patterns on my coat. The distant laughter inside faded to a muffled hum, and I sat alone, numb in every limb. Yet amid that biting cold, something began to thaw deep inside me, the conviction that I no longer belonged in their picture-perfect scene. As I rose, brushing snow from my shoulders, I carried with me the first spark of a new resolve. I would no longer stand on the threshold of a home that slammed its door in my face. That frozen doorstep became the line I would never cross again. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket just as I pushed away from the cold front step. I slid off my glove with numb fingers and saw Adam's name flashing on the screen. With a heavy breath, I answered. "Hey, Jake," his voice crackled through the speaker, equal parts awkward apology and irritation. "Don't be upset, but, we couldn't let you in." I leaned against the snow-dusted railing, wind stinging my face, and closed my eyes. "I'm not upset," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I just can't believe this is happening." He sighed. "Look, helping with rent isn't the same as being family dinner. You know how complicated things are right now." Complicated things? I remembered last winter, when Dad lost his job, and I wired 3 months' mortgage in a single afternoon. I recalled the countless times I covered the utility bills when Mom's small business hit a rough patch. Yet tonight, assistance meant participation, and participation had its price. "I'm curious," I said softly, stepping back into the halogen glow of the porch light. "When did money become the gatekeeper for love?" Silence. Then Adam's voice, quieter. "It's not like that, bro. We just, I don't know, needed a smaller gathering tonight." "A smaller gathering," I echoed, picturing our parents and younger brother clustered around the fire, my seat conspicuously empty. And I'm the party of one who isn't wanted. He cleared his throat. You have to understand, we needed it to be uncomplicated. Uncomplicated? I let my glove drop to the ground. Adam, I've spent years being your safety net. When you were out of work, I covered your car payment. When you needed rent for your first apartment, I sent checks every month. Why does simplicity kick me out the door? There's more going on than you know, he said, voice hitching. But look, just don't make a scene with Mom, okay? A scene. I released the breath I'd been holding. He was worried about a scene, but saw no issue with shutting me out. I won't make a scene, I promised, though inside I trembled with disbelief. But I'm done being the invisible guest at my own family's table. Jake, he began, but I cut him off. I'm not your bank, I said, each word deliberate, and I refuse to be your backup plan. He was silent so long that I wondered if the line had dropped. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. Save it, I replied, for someone who wants to listen. Then I hung up. The line clicked dead, and the only sound was the soft twitter of snowfall. I stuffed my phone into my pocket, the echo of Adam's half-hearted pity still ringing in my ears. No amount of financial support had earned me the respect or inclusion I deserved. Helping had become an unpaid bill, and tonight's call was the reminder. Money doesn't buy belonging. As I turned back toward my car, I felt the first real pulse of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Relief. I wasn't just leaving their party. I was stepping into a new chapter where my worth wouldn't be measured in dollars or dinner invitations, but in the simple, undeniable fact that I mattered, just as I was. The drive home felt surreal, the taillights of my car slicing through the blanket of falling snow, as if drawing a line between two lives. Once I crossed the threshold of my apartment, I sank into the sofa, breath still ragged from the cold, and then I reached for my phone. My thumb hovered over the banking app icon for a heartbeat that stretched into steel clarity. If they could shut me out of my own home, I could shut them out of my accounts. I tapped transfers, found the automatic rent payment I'd set up months ago, and with one firm swipe, canceled it. The confirmation screen glowed. Next payment halted. My chest tightened, but it was no longer panic. It was purpose. I navigated to the joint checking account I'd created for family emergencies, a soft euphemism that masked years of bailouts, and closed it entirely, watching the balance evaporate into my private savings. Then I blocked the secondary credit card I'd given Adam for gas, the plastic rectangle that had once symbolized my goodwill, now a reminder of my own invisibility. With each click, I felt a door slamming shut. No more rent checks to a household that slammed the door on me. No more phone calls demanding bailouts. No more quiet resentment bubbling beneath forced gratitude. The screen flashed card blocked, and a sense of cold finality spread through me, sharper than any winter wind. I sat back and watched the snow drift past my window, painting the world white and clean, like the slate I was wiping. In the silence that followed, I poured myself a cup of coffee, its warmth a small rebellion against the guilt they tried to stir. My phone buzzed immediately with incoming calls. 61 missed by morning, they said. But I didn't look. The ledger of what I'd done for them flashed in my mind. Mortgage payments when Dad lost his job, emergency dental surgeries, Adam's rent and car notes, groceries and holiday gifts. Those decades of unspoken sacrifices had bought me nothing but the role of an unpaid sponsor, a line item in their budget that could vanish without a second thought. Tonight I reclaimed my worth, not with anger, but with quiet conviction. I reset my voicemail greeting to a simple message. Hi, you've reached Jacob. I'm unavailable right now. And let the machine hum through another barrage of apologies I would never hear. The apartment felt different, no longer a refuge from cold family scenes, but a sanctuary of boundaries I set for myself. I folded my hands and watched the steam rise from my mug, realizing that canceling Christmas wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. In that moment, I understood that the true gift I could give myself was this: the freedom to live on my terms, unburdened by expectations I'd never asked for. And as the oven timer dinged, a reminder to bake my own small celebration cake, I felt the first spark of genuine warmth, the knowledge that, in canceling their version of Christmas, I had opened the door to my own. When dawn's pale light filtered through my blinds, my phone lay on the nightstand like a ticking time bomb. I reached for it, blinking away sleep, only to see a torrent of notifications. 61 missed calls, dozens of texts, voicemail alerts flooding the screen. My thumb hovered over the first number. Mom? I took a steadying breath and reminded myself of last night's decisions. I didn't owe them immediate explanations, so I let it ring into voicemail. The second call was Dad, urgent, clipped. Jake, pick up. Third was Adam. Bro, answer me. Then Aunt Carol, the landlord, even an unknown number labeled family crisis. Each missed call felt like a pulse of their desperation, a frantic heartbeat meant to break through my resolve. My chest tightened as I recalled the science I'd skimmed. Repeated phone alerts trigger cortisol spikes. Each buzz a mini stress test that can leave you wired and anxious. I pushed the covers away, reminding myself that true calm comes from controlling your own response, not theirs. I rose and walked to the kitchen, planting my feet firmly on the hardwood floor. Outside, the snow lay undisturbed. Inside, my world was still. I opened my coffee maker, let the machine hiss and drip, while the phone screen continued to glow with red bubbles of distress I refused to acknowledge. The coffee's aroma helped anchor me, a simple ritual I'd saved for this moment of choice. Sitting at the counter, I opened the voicemail menu. 7 messages. Mom's tear-strained apology, Dad's pleading voice, Adam's blend of anger and hurt. I listened to each, not to respond, but to witness their last-ditch attempts to reclaim the version of me they wanted. Their words blurred into one refrain. We need you. And yet, I had learned that need thinly veils demand. With a calm swipe, I archived each message. No anger, just firm acceptance. I would not be held hostage by guilt. The silence that followed was profound. No ringing phones, no buzzing alerts, just the steady drip-drip of coffee. My phone finally lay still, its battery icon blinking peacefully at 78%. I reached for my laptop and drafted a quick note to my support group. Took back my morning. Phone on silent, coffee in hand, planning my day. I hit send and felt a small surge of solidarity. Outside that group, I was the sole provider. Here, I was one voice among many who understood the power of boundaries. By mid-morning, the missed calls morphed into texts pleading for my attention, but I remained focused on my to-do list. Run errands, call the mechanic about my car's winter tires, tackle the spreadsheet for my freelance gig. Each task was a deliberate step away from chaos. In that hush, I realized something vital. Sometimes the loudest statements come not from answers, but from choosing not to reply. The 81 calls waited. I'd let them sit. Because today, I belonged to myself. And that silent morning, free from frantic demands, was my first true gift of the season. For as long as I can remember, I was the one who fixed the holes in their lives, the silent provider whose name never appeared in holiday toasts or family photos, only on the back of invoices and bank statements. When Dad's job disappeared overnight, I wired 3 months' mortgage into the family account before sunrise, using every penny I'd saved from that promotion. I didn't announce it, just logged in, transferred the cash, and watched the balance drop, knowing our home would stay warm one more winter. A few months after, Mom's crown broke during a routine dental checkup. She paddled through the embarrassment and asked me for a loan. I covered the $1,200 bill without a word. When Adam needed rent for his first apartment, I set up auto payments, $800 each month, so he could focus on interviews instead of eviction notices. I became a silent current flowing beneath the surface, unseen yet essential. Thanksgiving was my showcase. I funded the turkey, the pies, even that fancy bottle of wine Dad insisted on. When the family photographer said, "Smile," I slid to the edge of the frame so my brothers could shine. I was the safety net they never knew had frayed until it finally tore. Every act of generosity weighed me down a little more. I remember working late nights during my own birthday week, typing reports until 2 a.m., then waking before dawn to transfer funds for the electric bill that I'd quietly rescued again. My apartment was a shoebox of instant noodles and textbooks, but their home was a palace of holiday cheer paid for by my quiet sacrifices. I never asked for thanks. In my mind, family meant stepping in when crisis hit. I told myself that love requires giving until you have nothing left. Yet each thank you I missed became a heavier burden. One summer afternoon, I overheard Adam texting his friends. "Jake's loaded. He'll fix anything when the going gets tough." The words stung. I wasn't loaded. I'd scrimped and saved for years just to keep up with their emergencies. The best example came last Christmas, when I paid for the new roof after a storm ripped off shingles. Walking through my own drafts that same week, I realized I was the silent hero in their story, until I was no hero at all. No one mentioned the roof at dinner. No one paused to ask how my own life was held together by those same hands. And yet, I still believed I was doing the right thing. Until I drove to their Christmas celebration that night, and they told me I had the wrong house. In that moment, the silent provider became the invisible stranger. All those years, I'd let my worth be measured in dollars and deeds. I covered their rent, their loans, their emergencies, until I had no claims left, no place at the table, no seat by the fire. The realization burned brighter than any holiday light. Generosity without boundaries is a recipe for erasure. So I closed the accounts, canceled the auto payments, and blocked the cards. My last gift. Proof that my love wasn't a commodity to be traded for convenience. In reclaiming my own quiet power, I learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes, the best way to care for those you love is to stop sacrificing yourself. Sometimes, being the silent provider means finally giving yourself permission to speak up, and to vanish when you're no longer wanted. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but that day my family wielded words like knives, each one carving away at the last shreds of my resolve. It began with Dad's voice in my voicemail, low and clipped. "You're being dramatic, Jacob. Christmas is family time." I listened as he told me I had taken things too far, as though protecting my own dignity were some outrageous act of betrayal. Then came Mom's text. "How could you do this to us? We're your parents." Her words flashed across the screen like flames, igniting the familiar guilt that had dogged every sacrifice I'd made for them. Next, Adam's group chat message. "Bro, you're a monster. You ruined our holiday." I stared at those words, the corners of my vision blurring with the ache of being vilified by the people I had devoted my life to supporting. I remembered each occasion I'd covered, the time I paid for Dad's prescription when insurance lapsed, the summer I underwrote Adam's first car, the countless utility bills I rescued when Mom's business slowed. I'd done it all without a single complaint until tonight. Now, their accusations cut deeper than ice, piercing the hushed peace of my apartment like unwelcome midnight callers. But instead of recoiling, I sat down at my kitchen table and opened a fresh note on my phone. "Words can wound," I typed, "but they can also draw boundaries in the heart." As their messages landed like blows, I crafted my response with the same precision I'd once used to pay their bills. "Your words hurt me more than you know," I began, tapping deliberately. "I have been your silent safety net for years, and tonight you chose to slam a door instead of say my name." My thumbs hovered as I weighed each sentence, refusing to let anger dictate my tone. If caring for you makes me a monster, then I choose to be monstrous rather than invisible. With that final line, I hit send, and the silence that followed felt vast. No immediate replies, no urgent pleas. Instead, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and my own steady breathing. I closed my eyes and let the echo of their words recede, replaced by a quiet realization. I had spent decades letting their voices overshadow my own. In those years, their criticisms had felt like truth. Tonight, I recognized them as the desperate flailing of people who had grown so accustomed to using me that they forgot I was human. By morning, their angry texts had cooled to awkward apologies. Mom's, "I'm sorry you're hurt." Dad's, "I didn't know how to say I missed you." Adam's, "Can we talk?" But those half-hearted words arrived too late, swallowed by the boundary I'd announced. I read them once, then deleted the thread. In their place, I wrote in my journal, "Words can be as sharp as any blade, but I no longer let them cut me down." Outside, the dawn light slipped through the curtains, illuminating my fresh start. No more silent sacrifices, no more words turned into weapons. I had spoken my truth, and in that act, I reclaimed my voice, and finally found the peace I'd been searching for. That evening, the knock on my door came like clockwork, 3 firm raps echoing through my empty hallway. I opened it to find them assembled, Mom's eyes red, Dad's shoulders slumped in defeat, Adam's face a storm of resentment. Behind them, the soft glow of their Christmas tree lit their desperate expressions. "We need to talk," Mom said, voice trembling. "This can't go on." They ushered me inside as though I were a guest returning to the feast I'd been barred from. I stayed rooted by the doorway, arms folded, silhouette framed by the flicker of twinkling lights. Dad led with clipped urgency. "You have to help us. The house is on the market. The cars are gone. Even Aunt Carol's refused to lend more money. We can't survive without you." Adam, never shy with his opinions, cut in. "You've got to come back. Cancel those blocks. Let us back into the account, or we'll lose everything." His tone wasn't a question, but a demand, one that hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Mom's lip quivered as she added, "We've lost more than money. We've lost hope." Their words swirled around me, each plea a parry against the boundary I'd drawn on that cold doorstep. I remembered the years I'd spent bailing them out, mortgage rescues, tuition funds, last-minute bail money, and realized that my generosity had become their expectation. Tonight they were asking me to erase my own needs for the sake of their crisis. I closed the door on their gaze and spoke calmly. "This is my final offer. I'll help in one way only. You liquidate joint investments to cover your debts, sell the house, split the proceeds fairly, and buy out my share. Or you face foreclosure, repossession, and the legal consequences of co-signed loans." My voice was steady, no pleading, no guilt, just truth and terms. A hush fell. Mom's breath hitched. Dad's jaw clenched as he ran a hand through his hair. Adam's face contorted with both disbelief and anger. They realized this wasn't an invitation to return, but a firm boundary. Meet these conditions or lose me forever. I could see the weight of their situation crystallize in their eyes. No more easy bailouts, no more safety net. Mom swallowed hard. "We don't have the funds right now." Dad's voice broke. "You're forcing us to sell everything. You know this will destroy us." I stepped back, the glow of the tree reflecting off the hardwood floor. "I'm not destroying you. You chose to shut me out instead of saying my name this Christmas." Adam's phone buzzed, calls from bankers and realty agents, no doubt, his screen lighting his anguished face. Dad's shoulders slumped further. Mom's lip trembled, then she looked at me, tears welling. I felt a flicker of sorrow, but I held fast. "This is the only way you'll learn that family support must be mutual," I said, voice softening. "I can't be your invisible sponsor anymore." They lingered in that silent room, the only sound the ticking of the clock and the distant hum of holiday music. Finally, Dad nodded, defeat etched in his posture. "We'll try," he whispered. Adam shot a last hurt glance before turning away. Mom paused at the door, her hand trembling on the knob. She didn't speak, her eyes said it all. As they left, I closed the door gently behind them. The echo of their footsteps faded into the night. I stood alone, breath steady, heart calm. The ultimatum was issued, and now, for the first time in years, I felt a quiet surge of relief. I hadn't just protected my own future, I'd shown them that true family care demands respect and reciprocity. Tonight, the scales had finally balanced, and I was free to reclaim my peace. When the front door finally clicked shut behind them, I realized something profound. The hardest part wasn't setting boundaries. It was living with them. The house fell silent, Christmas lights casting long shadows on the walls where their laughter had once echoed. I leaned against the door, heart pounding, then slowly turned the deadbolt, sealing out not just the chill of that winter night, but years of guilt and obligation. I moved through my apartment in measured steps, pausing only to tuck the old family photo into a drawer, faces frozen in happier times, a reminder of whom I had once been. With deliberate calm, I contacted the bank to confirm every automatic payment was canceled, the joint account closed, the cards blocked. Each confirmation beep felt like a forgiven debt, a piece of my peace restored. Then I did something I'd postponed for too long. I changed my voicemail greeting. No more "sorry I missed you," obliged to their demands. Instead, I recorded a simple message. "You've reached Jacob. Please leave a detailed message. I'll return calls that respect my time." The next morning, I woke without the shrill buzz of pending calls. Instead, sunlight filtered through white curtains, painting a warm glow across my bed. I tucked my feet into slippers and padded into the kitchen, pulling beans from the pantry instead of instant noodles. As the coffee machine hissed, I breathed deeply, savoring the aroma. Not a bailout, just a small luxury I earned. I spent that day reclaiming my life, I unsubscribed from family group texts, changed my contact information where need be, and even took down the emergency calendar reminders I'd set for their bills. Then I stepped outside for the first time without guilt, breathing crisp air as I walked to the corner cafe. I ordered a latte and a pastry, no obligation, no expectation, just a moment of ordinary joy. Over the next week, I reconnected with friends who'd been sidelined by my perpetual on-call status. We shared meals that weren't interrupted by urgent help-me texts, laughter no longer tinged by my looming deadlines to transfer rent. I went to the gym, not to burn off stress, but to strengthen my body for a future defined by my own goals. At work, I found myself more present. Ideas flowed freely when I wasn't juggling family finances, and colleagues noticed my lighter mood. I began mentoring a junior teammate, this time on my terms, hours I chose, advice I gave from generosity rather than pressure. Teaching felt empowering, a far cry from the silent labor I'd once offered at home. That first night, I sat by my small, succulent-laden window and scribbled in my journal, "Today, I am no one's ATM. Today, I am free." No tears, only a quiet contentment, the steady pulse of self-respect. I hadn't expected a grand flourish, no dramatic confrontation, no triumphant parade, just this clean break, a gentle yet irrevocable shift. As I closed the journal, I realized my home felt different. Not a refuge from conflict, but a sanctuary of choice. Outside, the city carried on in its busy rhythm, but inside, I finally found my own heartbeat. And for the first time, that was enough. That morning, I awoke not to the shrill buzz of 100 missed calls, but to a peaceful silence that felt like a warm blanket. For years, I'd believed my value lay in the bank transfers, the emergency, bailouts, the checks under the door at midnight, until I realized that generosity without boundaries simply eats you alive. Research shows that setting firm personal boundaries can reduce stress hormones by nearly a quarter. And as I sipped my coffee and watched sunlight dance through my window, I felt that science come alive in my own body. My shoulders relaxed, my mind cleared, and for the first time, in as long as I can remember, my heart felt at ease. I reflected on the journey that brought me here, the shivering night on the porch, my brother's call treating me like an outsider, the silent vow I made as I canceled every automatic rent payment and blocked those credit cards I once handed them without hesitation. I remembered the humiliation of being told, "You have the wrong house," and how those words ignited a spark of self-respect so fierce it burned through the guilt I had carried for decades. Each step, from the 61 missed calls to the final ultimatum demanding they liquidate joint assets, had been a brick in the wall I built around my own well-being. That wall didn't isolate me. It embodied the strength I had been too afraid to claim. Now, as I prepared for the day, I savored simple acts I had long postponed. I laced up my sneakers and walked to the park rather than rush through errands for someone else's crisis. I spent an hour at the community center teaching young volunteers, sharing the lesson I'd learned the hard way. True support is mutual, and respect is never bought with sympathy alone. Later, I dropped by my favorite bakery, not to cover someone else's tab, but to treat myself to a cinnamon roll and a genuine smile from the barista who knew my name. If you've ever felt defined by your capacity to give, only to be taken for granted, know this: you deserve more than debt and disappointment. Your worth cannot be measured in dollars you spend on others. It resides in the quiet dignity of a life lived on your own terms. So, I invite you, share this story with someone who needs to know that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's self-care. Click like if you believe in protecting your peace, and subscribe for more real stories of resilience and renewal. Then, in the comments below, tell us, when was your turning point, the moment you chose yourself over obligation? Your experience could be the spark that helps someone else find the courage to lock the door on toxic patterns and step into freedom. Because at the end of the day, the greatest gift we can give ourselves isn't a perfect family gathering or another bank transfer. It's the respect we demand, the love we accept, and the peace we earn when we refuse to be anything less than enough.